Hello, this is David Wales for my Milestone 1. I met all the requirements and I didn't really exceed that much, but I did do an input system. Um, so I'll run my game, show that I have everything that is required. So the aliens are rotating between two sprites and they move down a row once they reach the edge. Obviously hardwired at this point. I haven't finished my collision system. Um, but yeah, so this is how it looks right now. And you can see there's all the different aliens, 5 rows, 11 of each, except for the jellyfish or octopus or whatever you want to call it. Um, so yeah. Um, so I have my base managers, which are my single link manager and double link manager. Right now, I don't think I'm even using my double link manager. I haven't really felt the need to. I'm sure I'll go back and uh, maybe there's an optimization where I could skip some of the iterating through if I have a double link versus single link. But for now, everything's working with single link. Um, I have a death system, which keeps track of any node, any kind of object, basically. Particularly useful for timers because they are not owned by a manager. So you can see in my game.cs here, I create a timer and then I attach it to a death manager. And then down in unload content, I destroy a manager, which um, clears the reference or the pointer pointing to this timer, and then it can be destroyed. I have a game object system, so this is my manager. So that just has it uses a single link, and you can register a game object node, which points to a game object, and then it calls update all inside the update in game.cs, which calls the game object's update function. So that simplified that. This is my actual game objects. This is actually a better diagram. So the game object is a PCS node, so I use that to move the alien grid. A game object is basically composed of a proxy sprite, which points to a normal sprite and just pushes its data to render. And then there's the alien abstract class, which is what all these drive classes drive from. So that was that, and I have a factory over here to simplify creation of an alien. So in here, it gives the type, and as a parameter, it finds the type in here, and then it creates it, and then it inserts it into the tree, and then returns it. And then I have an input system, which I used here. So I have mouse manager, key manager, and an input manager. I used an adapter pattern for the input manager so that the user, or me in this case, didn't have to call key manager dot was pressed or was released. I could just do input manager that was pressed that was released and just enter an Azul mouse or Azul key and it would just figure it all out on its own. Same thing with registering input and all that. And of course, a lot of these, basically all my managers are singletons. I think actually all of them are. So the PCS hierarchy was just what you gave me. Sprite system, I have the images, pretty straightforward, add image, get image. Sprite batches, this is kind of a little more interesting, I guess. So you can add layer, which just creates a sprite batch with a given name SB layer. Then you can add sprite to a layer, and then that just goes through, finds the correct sprite batch, and then calls add sprite, which just creates a sprite batch data pointing to the sprite base that was passed in over here. And then it calls draw all inside the game.cs, sprite batch manager.draw all, and that can just go through, iterates through all of the sprite batches, calls draw layer, which then iterates through all of the sprite batch data, which then calls the sprite bases render. That sprites, I have the proxy sprite. As I said earlier, it just points to a normal sprite, and then it just pushes its data inside the render of the proxy sprite, and then calls render on sprite. Sprite box, nothing super big, just basically an adapter pattern, nothing fancy. Same thing with sprites for the most part. This is kind of all the sprites, but yeah, this one. Textures, similar to the image, straightforward, nothing really special. Timer manager. I have this the manager that you can add a timer to. You can also get the time, which just gets the game time. I didn't see a simple way of getting it through the, besides just passing it into here from other classes that weren't in the game.cs file. And then I can call update timers, which is called in the game.cs here. Up and update timer manager.update timers, and just pass in the current time, and it updates it. And then it goes through, iterates through all the timer nodes, and calls their execute function if that time has passed. And then, for instance, you can go into alien move timer, and it goes through, does all of its special things, and then in this case, it just uses the same timer over and over. So it just sets the relative time again, and then starts the timer over. Animation system. I have this is very similar to sprite batch, so you can add an animation group. You could add an image to a specific animation group. These two are called automatically within the animation group when you add an image. And then in the game.cs, it calls update animation, and that goes through and updates the current animation, or the current image that the animation group is pointing to. And then the sprite animator is what the user can register sprites to. And then you call update all in the game.cs update. And that goes through and assigns that the sprite, the registered sprite's image, to whatever the animation group's image that it is supposed to be registered to. And that's pretty much all I did for this milestone. I think I did everything. I'm kind of a little disappointed I didn't get further this week, but it was because of Valentine's Day, so I'll catch up. So, yeah, have a good one.